America is more divided than ever. We'll start by having everyone that agrees come up now. Okay, it looks like there's at least one thing that we can agree on today. I guess we'll just start on the end and make our way around.
Yeah, I think division in this country is at an all-time high, and I don't think it's necessarily along right and left or liberal and conservative as much as I see divides that are starting to polarize between good and evil, right and wrong. I see it's gone way beyond left and right sides of the aisle.
I think I agree with that. You've seen so much in the last month with the shooting of Charlie Kirk that it's really brought out the polarization in America. People think that it's right, people think that it's wrong, but at the end of the day, somebody died. And I think that has really affected this country.
I agree with them, but I also think that we, as a society, people have forgotten it costs nothing to be a decent human being, period.
The real divide, and this is the thing that needs to be discussed honestly, and he's completely right with the shooting of Charlie Kirk. That adds a lot of where we're at right now, but it is the difference between the republic and the multicultural democracy of America. Those are the two options we can choose, but we can't have both.
What's fascinating is I agree a little bit with what you said about the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I thought it was an opportunity where we could actually come together. I think that anybody getting shot in a violent way using their speech is an opportunity to say we need to make change. So it didn't feel like it went that way, but I thought it was an opportunity. So I agree with you there, but I do see that it did seem to create a bigger divide. I just didn't understand the why behind that because I felt like it was an opportunity lost.
I think at this point there's not really division. It's really just hate at this point. And at the end of the day, we all just need to be kind. And sometimes you do just have to put differences to the side. So yeah, I just think more people need to be kind as well.
I don't think it's necessarily a politics issue, a left versus right. I think it's a lack of respect because obviously no matter who you are, no matter what party you represent or side with, everyone's still deserving of that respect. And I think there is none. I think there's no listening, there's no understanding. Our media does a really good job of demonizing the other side, no matter what side you're on. So I think that plays a big part in it as well.
Why? Why are we so divided? What is causing this division? Why is it ramping up as it seems that time goes further? And I'll just let anybody start and then it's all you guys.
I want to propose something that probably nobody in this room has ever thought of. How about it's the founding ideology itself? Because the multicultural democracy and the republic, which these are the sides that you truly represent at the end of the day, you are arguing in the favor of the same things that between Rousseau and Locke. But the problem is, it's still, at the end of the day, is basically saying we can legislate to perfection, which is never going to happen. Any form of that belief system, you're inherently guaranteeing this divide will start over and over and over again. And we should have saw it coming 100 and something years ago during the French Revolution when they had the same exact problem. Or perhaps the Hungarians when they had a similar problem, which I spoke to Jim about before the show.
Okay. And what about yeah, I see it's starting at the beginning. What about things now though? What are you guys seeing now that you think is creating this division?
Well, I think it's about passion, right? So your ideals, your thoughts, what you believe in, what you don't believe in, you're very passionate about it. It kind of identifies who you are, right? So not to open up a completely different can of worms, but I grew up in a town, in a rural town, in a time when there was not a truck on the school lot property that did not have a gun in the back window, and nobody was shooting up schools, right? We're passionate about that. Passionate about saving children. While we are too, we're still passionate about the idea that we have to fix another problem besides mental health. or fix that mental health before it's about the passion and what you put into it. And everybody is passionate about their ideals. The problem is nobody's meeting in the middle. Nobody's understanding you're just as passionate about your ideas as I am about mine. And there's just no common ground. So people are just being crappy humans.
And that's why I had brought up, I think it's a media issue, because you want to put out what's going to get views, what's going to get read, what's going to get spread. And so by pointing out the negativity or the stupid things on either side, that's giving the media, good headlines, giving them kind of what they want. And so there is a passion, I agree. But I think there's also this kind of manufactured hatred that really, in real life, I would say it doesn't exist. I think it's all that we
If you
see,
don't
like,
believe me, you're bad.
Well,
I think that's the mentality. And I don't disagree with you on the media aspect of it. There used to be a time when you could read an article or you could hear an article from a journalist and you would never know which side of the aisle they were on. Mm-hmm. I have not read or seen an article in the better part of 10 years where I could not tell you which party that writer identified with by the end of the story.
I can actually explain both. So first off, it's actually ads, the way they make money, because they require advertisement to make money and not subscriptions like in her day. And also there was neutrality laws. No offense.
Hold on.
Okay, this is where it gets ugly.
Hold up. You were saying in your day, so I was using your term. Okay, so
no offense taken.
No, so okay. First off, there was neutrality laws, and second, the way they made money was mostly through subscriptions, which forced them to kind of sit in the middle because most people are normies, and actually it is as divided as the media is. I'm dead ass. I used to come from California, and 6 years ago, there were people who would say, oh yeah, I'm willing to kill this person, they're very left-leaning, and they were like, oh yeah, I'm willing to kill this conservative, blah, blah, blah. And they would get praised around them. They wouldn't looked at with horror. They would be smiled upon. But this is the thing, is that you have to understand that we're never going to get anywhere in this conversation unless we get to the real root, and that's the ideology and some of the laws and in modern day technology, yes, but the ideological root guarantees this problem even beforehand, right, in different nations.
Wait, you said something earlier about it's not like left and right, it's like good and evil, and I wanted to kind of unpack that, if you would.
So I think we'll go back in the day. It seems that there were two different sides that loved America and wanted to advance America on the world stage and had different ways they really believed in their hearts they wanted to go about doing that. This policy, and we could disagree on policy, but the common ground seemed to be we loved America and we wanted to advance that republic. That seemed to be the basis. Now, it seems that there is a faction of the liberal side, of the left side, of progressives that hate America. You turn on the news every day and you see flag burning, you see the things that get said about the president are just appalling. I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I never ran around and called him names, and I never even said Biden. I would say President Biden. He was the president of the United States. I love this country. I wasn't a Joe Biden fan. I had respect. The respect is gone. The other thing that I see is on the progressive side, on both sides, there are extremists on each side that need to be called out. And I'm a conservative dude, and if I see whack jobs on the far right, I'm calling them out. A problem that I see with the left is there are people mocking Charlie Kirk's murder. There are people calling for more assassinations. They're out there burning cities. They're out there causing riots and strife and everything they can do to sow division. Yet the people that actually have really good ideas on the left are silent and not calling that behavior out. That is a problem. The other thing that I'll finish up with is it seems that every issue is now political. Everything's political. This male should be allowed to compete in female college athletics is now a political issue. and everything's politicized. There's now many, many genders. That's a political issue. And it seems that I can speak for myself and a lot of other conservatives that I know, it seems that the other side tends to want to rewrite fact. And if you don't buy into what they believe, if they want to tell you the sky is red instead of blue, and if you say, no, it's still blue, all of a sudden you're a bigot. And then the labels start flowing. And if you're a guy that likes to lift weights, you're somehow racist. If you're, I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
What are we talking about? And is that everybody on the left? Absolutely not. It's absolutely not. But the loud voices are the whack jobs, and it's on each side. Everything's politicized. The advancement of the nation is no longer the goal. Identity politics is. And I need to be right, and the other side has to be wrong. There's things that I'm going to hear from the left. We can sit here and have a debate about it, but it's going to be a really early night for me if the debate is going to be there's 17 genders. I don't have a lot of discussion to talk about on that. Just male and female. I'll be quiet about that after that. But that's now a political issue, and that's nothing that's going to advance the country.
I understand what you're saying, but I think a lot of what you have said is a misconception or a skewed perspective, because as a liberal, as very, very liberal person, I don't hate this country. I don't. I think I'm liberal because I love it. And that probably doesn't make sense to you guys. I have a degree in political science. That's my background. And so I think I'm able to approach these topics objectively versus subjectively. And I spent a long time studying the Constitution and the intent behind the Constitution, what was meant when it was written and stuff like that. And somewhere along the line, it did get messy. But in regard to, you had mentioned flag burning, that's a First Amendment right. The Supreme Court has said that's a valid form of protesting. Maybe it's disrespectful. I think it's an exercise of First Amendment rights. That said, I don't think anyone should be killed or harmed for exercising those rights. I think what happened to Charlie Kirk is horrible. Nobody deserves to be a victim of political violence, point blank, period. I don't care what your views are. I mean, there's views on the liberal side saying he deserved it, whatever. I hated him. I did not like the guy. He did not deserve that. But then I think the respect also needs to be given back to the liberal side, if that makes sense. There's extremist viewpoints on all sides, as we have established. But I think we just really need to create this better understanding of it. It's not us versus you, right? It's we all want a better country. We just have different ways of achieving it. But there's always going to be a middle ground. And in regard to good versus bad, it's a moral thing. I think people's upbringing has a lot to do with it. And when you bring morals into politics, that's when I think it gets a little messy. Kind of
where
I think,
morals
as you
should
were
be,
saying.
though, is in politics, don't you think?
Huh?
I mean, so my question to you regarding the flag, you're absolutely right. It is their right to burn that flag if they want to.
don't.
Well, and whether it should be or not, it is their right. However, at what point do we take a step back as being a decent human and respect the fact that one of those flags covered my daddy's coffin when we buried him, right?
My dad's a vet. I get it.
So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about passion and it absolutely is a right, but when does respect come into play? When does the fact that it is, taking a knee, I'm sorry, that's disrespectful to every veteran. It's their right. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying it's crappy to do it because you have that flag and it means something. Where are those people that were here after 9/11? Where are those people flying that flag from their house? You don't see that anymore. Why? You can't.
Let me mention something about the flag. If you were to drive down any street in this community and you went through a neighborhood and you saw a flag, American flag, flying outside of 10 homes, what would you deem those 10 homes as political ideology?
They're Republican.
Conservatives.
They're conservative.
They're conservatives.